everybody, happy Wednesday or hump day or whatever you want to call it. And when it's Wednesdays, I'm on the website. And if you haven't gotten onto KatiMorton.com, I would encourage you to check it out. I've also updated my store. I know many of you, when I first did that, had purchased sweatshirts and bags and all sorts of things, and I hadn't updated it since ages ago, and some of them were sized differently, and I was just really frustrated with it. So I've gone in and I've revamped it and put a new logo and everything in there. So check it out if you're interested in getting some t-shirts or coffee mugs or mouse pads or anything. They're all there. And they're super soft. I got these different cotton ones, so they're really nice. Okay, but when it's Wednesdays, I'm on the website, KatiMorton.com, and I'm also on YouTube. So if you asked your questions under yesterday's video, I've gone through and I've already answered a bunch of them, as well as on the website. And I want to thank you all on YouTube for using the thumbs up, like the like part that they have under the comments, because it really helps me to find out which questions most of you would like answered. And so I have 3 today, and most of them are, the ones that are from YouTube have the most likes. So hopefully that'll answer more of your questions. And if you are out there and you keep asking questions and you think, Katie, you're never answering my questions, you have to remember I'm only one person. I can't get through everything. And if there's a question that's very similar to yours that you see, give it a like, because chances are when it gets that like, I'll see it, and it's more apt to wind up in a video. And I have a journal topic, so stay tuned at the end for that. Okay, so first question. Dear Katie, what would you say is the right time for telling a new potential partner about our past sexual abuse, and how can we do it without scaring them away? I don't want him to know so that he can pity me, but because I think it's important since it influences the way that I interact and react. In the past, I never told it, and it always led to complications. I don't want it to happen over and over again. Thanks for everything you do. I can't say it too often. Oh, thanks. I thought this was a great question. This got a lot of likes, so it means a lot of you out there are curious about when do we tell people and how do we tell them. So first of all, I always recommend the Courage to Heal workbook. If any of you are survivors of sexual abuse, the Courage to Heal workbook is amazing. And even if you don't use it from cover to cover, there are a ton of exercises in the middle that can really help, as well as helping with this question specifically. So my advice when people wonder what's the right time, a lot of it has to do with the seriousness of your relationship. Now, if you've just met this person, it's probably not the easiest or the best to tell them about your sexual abuse past then and there. I usually tell my clients to wait until you're comfortable talking with them about real things in your life. Like, work was really stressful, and then, I just wanted to cry, so I went to the bathroom and cried for a bit because it was just overwhelming. My boss was really mean. Or, you're talking about actual emotions, real things you feel and that you struggle with. And when you're comfortable with them, talking like that with them, knowing what's going on in their life, you could have or not said, I love you. That's really not as important to me as the ability to communicate and actually getting to know each other on a real level. At that point, when you feel that closeness, and this could be 1 week into the relationship, this could be 6 months into the relationship, but when you feel safe to communicate about other things, I would begin practicing what you want to say and how you want to tell them. Practice saying it out loud yourself. Practice in front of the mirror. If you have a friend that already knows about it, I would talk to her or him about it and get their feedback so that you can better prepare for the conversation. Because I know it's going to be uncomfortable. Even if you're really close to them, it's still going to be a little awkward. But we hope that we're expressing to them what's happened. We're helping them understand where we're at and where we're coming from and what we may need from them in the future when it comes to sex and everything that is included in that. So that would be my advice, to take your time with it. I know our sexual relationships can be different depending on what you think about it and what's important. Some people have sex without a relationship. Some people have sex first date. Some people wait till marriage till they have sex, and everything in between. But I just want to make sure that if you're in the situation, because it sounds like potentially you're in the situation where you want it to be with someone you care about, but you don't know if you can go through with it, and how do you talk about that, that's where I would start. Because you may need them to be open to starting and stopping during sex, maybe not doing it at all, maybe thinking you're going to and then not, and you want them to understand so that in the moment you're not trying to explain this and everybody's hot and bothered and it's just too much. So I would encourage you to make sure you do it when it's not in the moment. Do it in a time when you're in a private area where you feel comfortable talking about it, and you both are, maybe sitting down having coffee or something like that, okay? And if any of you have had experience with this, can you let us know below? Because I can give my advice based on things I've researched and read and what my clients have done and haven't done and what's worked and not worked, but there's nothing like hearing from someone else who's gone through the same thing who can say, hey, you know what worked for me was X, Y, and Z. So if you have any advice, let us know. Question number 2. Hey, Katie, how do we figure out how far back our eating disorders started? I felt like they started at a specific time in high school, but the more I think back on things, I think I already had problems. Does this even matter in the recovery process? So figuring out how far back your eating issues started can be really difficult. And it honestly depends a lot on being in therapy and someone asking, the quote unquote right questions to get you to think about it, because sometimes when we're little, we don't really put any significance on that one thing that happened. So having someone force us to recall that information can really help. So, but does it really matter? No, I don't think it matters. Now we're learning more and more how people can be more genetically predisposed for mental health issues, and especially they're making some leaps and bounds with eating disorders. Now I have an article that came up in my feed that I haven't read yet, but they found a few more genes that are linked to eating disorders, and so we know that we can be born being more predisposed for an eating disorder. But does that mean that we're necessarily going to have one? No, because there's always some genetic component like nature versus nurture. So all that tells us is that we could be predisposed for a lot of things. And if the right things happen, the perfect storm comes together, we could have an eating disorder. So I don't think knowing when it actually started matters in our recovery. What does matter is what purpose your eating disorder serves for you. And I know for many people, they're like, where do I even think about that? I don't even know how do I start on that? But you have to think about when you're triggered, when you use it most, when did you start using it the most you can remember, like in high school when it started to get bad, what was going on. We can use all of those things as clues to figure out what purpose it's serving for us, and then we need to fill that with something healthy, because a lot of times our eating disorder is masking our anxiety or masking our depression or masking our PTSD or something else. It's like a secondary thing. So usually there's something else underneath that we need to try and find a new way to cope with, if that makes sense. Okay? Question number 3. Katie, is it possible to just have a depressive/suicidal personality without it being a mental illness? I'm 23 and I've been like this all my life. I remember being in elementary school and wanting to die and thinking up ways to kill myself. I just think that if I even bothered with seeking help for other issues I have, that I'll probably always be a walking mess of anxiety, depression, and suicidal thoughts. I think I was probably just never cut out for life. This got a lot of likes, and it's not possible to answer the question. Is it possible to have depression, suicidal personality? You can't have a depressive/suicidal personality. You can have a personality disorder, which really what that means is that part of the way that you relate in general is difficult for you, like you struggle with narcissism, like narcissistic personality disorder, or borderline personality disorder. I have a lot of videos on all sorts of personality disorders if you so choose to search and watch them. But for this, like I was talking about with eating disorders, we can be genetically predisposed to a lot of things. Does that mean that we can't make it, that things will never get better, that we just suck at life and we weren't even made to live? No, that's your depression or your self-harm or your suicidal thoughts just being an asshole. So stop listening to them because they're telling you lies. The truth is that we can work on things, that we can start talking to someone about it. We can start processing through things that may have happened to us. We can start trying to change our negative thought process and do kind of a negative thinking log where we keep track and we talk back to those voices. There are so many things that we can do that will make our lives so much better. I was just reading in my LGBTQ book that I got a couple books for a workbook I'm putting together, and the woman who wrote one of the books said that she had tried to kill herself because she felt she was a lesbian and she didn't know how to tell anybody, and she thought she'd be better off dead. And once she did it, her sister found her and took her to the hospital, and she survived. And she thanks God every day that that didn't happen, because there's so many things that she could have done. And she didn't see a way out of this dark hole. And a lot of us don't see a way out of the dark hole. But trust me, there is. And if you reach out and if you start talking about it, we start being honest, we start opening up to people who are supportive and who we love, things will get better. It's a lot of fucking work. It's not easy. It's not like, wow, snap my fingers, I feel amazing. But we can slowly get there, and you're all worth the fight. Yes, you deserve to live. Yes, you were made to live. You were put on this earth for a reason. You might not know what that reason is yet, but you'll find your purpose. And when you do, it will be amazing. So know that you are not just completely ridiculous and are not cut out for life, because that's your depression and suicidal thoughts talking, and frankly, I don't want to hear it, because it's not true. You were made for this life, you're put on this earth for a reason, and go out and figure out what that reason is. I challenge you. Challenge. Okay? So yeah, stick it to those voices. Now the journal topic, and I hope I'm saying your name right, I think it's Jean, but I don't know. I'm sorry if I said it wrong. So, and I thought this was perfect. Perfect end to the video. Repeat after me. I am stronger than this challenge, and this challenge is making me even stronger. It's amazing. Write about it. What do you think about it? Is it bullshit? Are you frustrated? Are you feeling exhausted? Get back up. Keep fighting. We can do it. Okay? Have a good day. I'll see you all tomorrow. I'll be on Twitter because it's Thursday. So ask your question using the hashtag KatieFAQ. Bye!